We are now recording. So hi, Brian. Thank you so much for spending this time uh, talking with me about your experiences as both a gay dad and I can't remember exactly what your role is with Gays with Kids, but I think it was founder and president.
Just
Um,
founder,
just
founder, yeah.
and so if we could start out, can you just tell me a little bit about who you are and your family, as much or as little as you're comfortable with? And then tell me a little bit about Gays with Kids.
Sure. It's great to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me. So my husband and I created our family through a combination of adoption and surrogacy. We found out about Levi when he was 3 days old, and we took him home from the hospital 2 days later. He turned 13 a couple of months ago. He has twin sisters that came to us through surrogacy. They are 11 and a half years old. On top of that, I'm HIV positive. I have been for well over 30 years. My husband and I have been together for 29 years. I've been positive for longer than that. And I only disclose that because that is no one's business, but I'm the bio dad of our girls born through surrogacy. And I just like to share that because it's one of the reasons I founded Gays with Kids was, there was no Gays with Kids when we were trying to become dads. And to figure all out what even our options were, and then how to go about each of those paths was really challenging and overwhelming and complicated. And that's eventually one of the reasons that led me to launching Gays with Kids, to help other gay men become dads, was just so that maybe I could utilize some of my experience and help the next generation.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing so openly about your HIV status and about the creation of your family. If you were to be enrolling your children in my classroom, are those questions that I should ask you as a classroom teacher? Like, hey, Brian, how did your family come to be?
No, that's a great question. That is nobody's business but our own. And if and how it comes out at some point, I mean, here's what I'd say. I'm bringing my husband and I were to bring our child together into your classroom, then certainly for you to acknowledge in a way that is relevant that your student, has two dads, the way you might say to another student, oh, what did you and your mom and dad do? That you see come in with mom and dad. What did you and your dad do this past weekend? Or how did you guys celebrate the holiday, or what you do for the summer? So to just make the same exact acknowledgement you would give to a child of heterosexual parents, that is completely normal. In fact, that would be great, because my child no longer has to make any disclosure or come out and say anything. You're just showing us that it's normal. It's just another family experience.
Right. I mean, I will say, like, in my 12 years of being a heterosexual parent, no one's ever asked me where she came from. Right.
We get that. And look, we get that a lot. I don't know at this point, is it because of Gays with Kids, I'm very, very comfortable, and I'm probably too open about it. And I like to let people know, because look, you will not meet too many gay men who say, oh, we went out, we got drunk one night, and next thing you know, we got a kid. Like, it just doesn't really happen that way. Right? It's not how it works. Try as we may, it's just not how it works.
Right.
So there's a lot that goes into it, and we have to even figure out what our options are, and then so it's a lot of work. And so I just like people to know that, so that any gay dad you meet has really put a lot of effort and thought into becoming a dad, and the process itself, regardless whether it's foster care, foster adoption, surrogacy, and IVF. I promise you that their journeys were long and arduous and complicated. And they put just a lot more effort into the whole process than what most of our heterosexual counterparts do.
Right. So I think, what I hear you saying is that it's really appropriate to have a reverence and an acknowledgement of you and your husband as dads. But it's none of our business how you got there. And you just happen to share it for informational purposes, for my students, for other gay dads, It is
Correct.
never appropriate for a teacher to be like, so,
No.
unless
How did you guys come to
maybe
be?
that teacher is also a gay dad or wanting to be a gay dad.
But not in
then they can
front of,
Google
so
it.
certainly not in front of others.
Right,
But if you want to
exactly.
have a private conversation, a teacher's a gay man who wants to become a dad, I mean, then I would say, maybe you could say to the student, hey, I'm really interested in becoming a dad too. I don't really know much about how to do that. Would it be cool if I talked to your dads to learn more?
Yeah, or just go to gayswithkids.com. Never, we should
Well,
never be asking.
obviously.
No, but we should never be, the point is like, we should never be asking our queer families how they were formed. ever.
Correct. No, I would not, it's no one's business. But can I just make one correction to you? I've got a GWK Academy, which we launched back in February. So Gays with Kids was formed in 2014. My husband and I launched it. And my mission has always been to help gay men become dads. And then once those men do become dads, help them navigate fatherhood, build experience in community, et cetera, especially for the first, 5 to 7 years of a kid's life when we really need that kind of community. And I've had, since day one, I've had hundreds, thousands of people saying thank you for what we've done and to tell me that we've inspired them. And about a year and a half ago, I just had this weird epiphany. And for the first time, I said, thank you so much for letting us know. It really means a lot to me. And I said, so what are you going to do now to become a dad? And they're like, I don't know. I guess I'll have to figure it out. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been doing this all wrong. I want to help people become dads. All I'm doing is inspiring them. That's not enough. Like, I'm not meeting the mission I said I've been doing. And so that led eventually to us, we'd already had relationships with surrogacy agencies, with IVF clinics, with foster agencies and adoption agencies, because they're part of the stories we've been telling, all from the dad's perspectives, of course. And so we said, we got to do more to help people become dads. And so we started by writing blog posts and lots of content that nobody wanted to read. And so that eventually led to GWK Academy, which we launched in February and is now available via app. So the first thing we'll do is tell you what your options are. Once you choose which option is best for your family creation, then you download a guide. It's either adoption and foster adopt or surrogacy and IVF. And we take you step by step through every step of the journey. We connect you with mentors or dads who have recently gone through that same journey, typically within the last 2 to 3 years. And we'll even connect you with a few family building partners that we've vetted and approved that we know are not only experts or leaders in their field, but they're as passionate as I am about helping gay men become dads.
Yeah. I think that would be a really good resource too, because even for teachers and my students, because they're going to be curious, right, for themselves. And this is a way where they could find the information out and not put you and your children in a fishbowl-y, like, let me find out from you kind of way, right? So the information is out there, even if you're not a gay man who wants to have children, but if you're a teacher who wants to understand how gay families come to be, you can do a little legwork on your own instead of asking the family in front of you to do all of the emotional labor and share things that they might think are really private. Like, not everyone is going to be as open about things.
No,
as your family,
I'm
right?
particularly open because I feel
Right.
like I have to, but no, absolutely not. Most people
Yeah.
are not. And so like I said, it's no one else's business. But yeah, absolutely. GWK Academy, the first lesson on there, and it's all free, is all the different options we have to creating our families.
Yeah. Well, so once you had your family, right, you had Levi and the girls, tell me a little bit about some of the experiences you've had with early childhood programs, or even later on, but most of my classes focus on early childhood, about that either like really affirmed your family and made your family feel welcome and normalized, or conversely, like really alienated your family and made you feel sort of unwelcome.
Sure. So we've always lived in progressive communities, and attended progressive schools, I should say. So whether New York City school system, Toronto, or where we live now just outside of Boston. So we've never had a negative experience. We never had anything but really positive ones. You know, early on, I can remember going to a school that we were just getting started and asking, trying to find out how they were going to be with our families. And they're like, we don't care if you're gay, straight, black, white, like, are you a loving family? Like you're here, we want to help support you. So, I was concerned about what are they going to do for Mother's Day, and how's my family to be included in Mother's Day conversations, and
How did they handle that?
so they pretty much say, well, are there women in your life that you'd like to, like, they asked us, how do we want to celebrate it? And we always say, well, there are many women in our kids' lives whom we honor Mother's Day. So they're two grandmothers and aunts. And so that's who we acknowledge on Mother's Day. And on Father's Day, we both take sort of the lead and want us to both be celebrated as their fathers. And then I also just want to make sure, the thing that drives me crazy, any form I ever see that says mom and dad. And so, but it's really never happened. Like I've certainly seen forms like that, but not through any educational programs, not through school systems.
Salem just changed ours to parent 1, parent 2.
Perfect. And then if there is only one parent, then they just fill out parent 1. That's it. Yeah.
But
It's
that's
just
been a recent change, and it's not changed everywhere.
No, I'm
Interestingly.
sure.
And it's such a simple change to make people feel welcome. And it's not just about LGBTQ families, it's about
Correct.
foster families or kinship care families, or right, like there's so many ways to be a family.
So many ways. And for I don't know, it's like a pet peeve of mine, because I think it just when I see those, I get so upset, because it's absolutely not my family, but it's not just that it's not my family, it's not so many other families as well. And why would you? These are easy things to change. But then I find out, if it's online and there's some old platform that they use, some legacy system that can't easily be changed, is this use I heard once. It's like, well, I don't, you just have to do it. But yeah.
Right.
So anyways, we've always had great experiences, and it's just conversations and about how we do things, and they are very accommodating at the schools.
What are some of the things that you've seen in terms of like classroom materials or assignments or things that have come home that have really affirmed your family and made you feel like you were included and thought about and normalized? Because I think one of the things that I'm hoping that these videos do for my students is help them understand just how normal families are and how to normalize all different kinds of families, even if they're different than our families or our families of origin.
So books is a huge thing. Books in the classroom, books that the kids bring home. My middle school child, when he was in 6th grade, so I bring home books that had to do with LGBTQ plus kids, that had to do with families with 2 dads or 2 moms, that had to do with Black children. My son is Black. That had to do with Black kids who are adopted. So it's just seeing our families represented in the books that they bring home is so important. When I was growing up, there was nothing anywhere about a gay man. And if I'm trying to think, nothing, like there was literally nothing. And then even the first made for TV movie that came out, the gay guy is a bad guy, and he's screwing over a woman, or he's hurting someone else. So like, for these kids to be able to see themselves reflected back to them is so important and so wonderful. So,
and in ways where they're like living happy and fulfilled lives and not like
right. Oh, they're dealing with regular life issues that we're all dealing with. But it's great. Yeah. Excuse me 1 second.
Of course. That's okay. I totally understand. My 12-year-old's running around today too. Well, thank you. Have you, I love that you've been able to have such positive experiences, and I really hope that those are the experiences that end up being in the classrooms for all children, but I know that that's unfortunately not the case. So in your work, what are some of the situations that have come up that have been really hurtful or alienating for families?
Sure. I mean, I know dads who have sent their children to parochial schools of sorts. I'll be honest, I don't know why a gay dad was sent it. I guess they thought that the school was better than the public school system. I'm not sure. So I've heard bad stories there where, just various stories that were not good. Or the other thing that stories of a dad who lives in San Francisco and just, he has a black son, he's a white dad with a black son, and just all the stereotypes that you hear that people think of when they think about black boys that these guys are going through. They're living on a daily life, and he sees it happening blatantly, the way the kids are treated at school by the teachers and others, and the administration, were actually even worse by the administration. So that's actually something that I try to teach our son. Like, I know this isn't going to sound fair or right, but you're a black male. And unfortunately, a lot of people, even in a progressive community, still hold certain feelings about what it means to be a black male in society today. And I don't want you running around this neighborhood. He loves to wear hoodies. My son loves to wear hoodies. And I'm like so deathly afraid of him wearing a hoodie outside. Something happened. He's now big, he's 13, but he's almost as big as me. And I'm afraid of what a police officer will think when coming across him. And we had an experience. We went to the local mall and we walked into a store that didn't make it through COVID. So I say, but there were all five of us were there, and we were all separated and doing our own thing, looking around. The only one that got followed by an employee was my son. And then when he went to touch something, she actually said to him, "Don't touch anything that you can't afford to buy." Now, she had no idea what he could afford to buy or not afford to buy. And I had my two daughters who were 17 months younger walking around, and I know one of them, she's very tactile. She likes to touch things. She's in the autism spectrum. And I know there's no way she couldn't have been, which probably I should have been watching her to make sure she wasn't, but I know she's touching things and no one said anything to her. So I think that's what I'm more concerned with, quite frankly, is raising a black son and not giving him the right skills. Because as soon as he leaves our little bubble, what's life going to be like for him?
So you really need your son's teachers to understand the intersectionality of him being a black kid with gay dads. And sometimes, like when he was littler, the gay dads were a big part of his identity. And now when he goes out in the world, being a black man is the bigger part of his identity.
Correct.
And you need his teachers to understand that they need to meet the needs of all of those identities.
Yes, that's great. And he has a teacher who really is a teacher in the school system who really is trying to do his best to help out. He's a white guy, but he brings together all the black students. But I turn back to the administration and say, you can't find one male black teacher to come in and be a mentor to these kids.
Well, so we talk about this a lot in the School of Ed and in the conversations we're having about like diversifying the teacher pipeline. And there's two big issues. One is, if you were treated the way that black men are treated through the school system, would you want to work there?
Fair enough.
Right. Yeah. And so we need to change, like, if we want more black teachers, we need to change the way we're treating black children.
Yeah.
And then the other issue is, black families have had so little time to build generational wealth. So many of the very smart, awesome, successful black folks want to be in jobs where they're going to be able to pay their student loans off and build wealth for their families. So we need to treat children better in schools. We have to have curriculum that makes them feel included. We can't be suspending them all the time. And then we also have to pay our teachers better. And so like, it is really hard to find black male teachers, right? And then, in terms of like other representation, I've known gay male teachers, but they weren't necessarily out because
Well, they could lose a job,
you could lose a job, right? There's a stigma around gay men and children that there isn't necessarily with lesbians and children.
So that's interesting. And it also has worked the opposite. My husband's a teacher. He hasn't taught for years, but he used to teach. And he used to teach at an all-girls school. And the all-girls school, that's all they wanted to do was to hire gay teachers, gay male teachers, because they knew they wouldn't have to deal with any
of the issues. Right. That's a niche.
So, like,
I feel
literally, it was all. So yes, gay men watching this, if you want to be a teacher, go work for an all-girls school.
There was my favorite preschool teacher ever was a gay Black man, who was so closeted at work, but also like, I'm not sure he could have been closeted ever.
Yeah.
He didn't, he was not necessarily like very stereotypically masculine.
Right. He just wasn't sharing his whole self the way most teachers do, right? Like most teachers will tell you, oh, we went away, my husband and I. And that's the same at work. Like, oh God, those people who are closeted would always say, well, it's no one's business what I did on the weekend. No, it's not anyone's business what you do on the weekend. However, we all go into work on Monday. We talk about what we did on the weekend. And, those of us who are out and are happy living, our authentic lives, share the same way our heterosexual friends, colleagues do.
And when we do that with our own, when we engage in those conversations with our own colleagues, that helps with the representation and helping our colleagues feel welcome. But also those are the conversations that we're learning so much about our children's funds of knowledge, right? If we're asking like, what did you and your dads do this weekend? Or what did your family do? I
love the way you just said that, by the way. What did you and your dads? That's what I was alluding to earlier. Like you just talk about it matter of factly. That's how the kids think about it as, by the way. The kids don't care if they have gay dads or straight parents, or if you have gay, but it's just the matter of fact is exactly the way they handle it.
Yeah. The kids, especially really young kids, are super like, well, I have dads. Like, that's just what I have. I just have dads, and you have moms, and you have a mom and a dad. Like, it's not until the societal ideas get put in there that they start to think that it's different or not normal.
Right.
And so again, like if I keep hearing this like across all of the interviews I've done, is that the representation in the classroom is really important. Like one of the base things that we can do is acknowledge people's families and welcome them in, and then have books that represent them. Like, because so much of our curriculum is rooted in literacy. Right. So, yeah. Other than that piece, which I feel like is big and easy, but also not easy, right? Like we have to find the books and we have to buy them and get them in our classrooms. But
so I don't know if you frozen.
Oh no.
On my stuff, I'm frozen.
Am I back? Sorry about that, y'all. We have some technical difficulties. So what I was asking was, what would your advice be for folks who want to be really inclusive classroom teachers?
Everything you just said is perfect. First of all, so don't have any expectations. That's it. That's another thing. It's like, don't make it upon the child to correct or to have to explain as a family, but don't also have any expectations, and don't just presume someone's coming in with a mom or a dad. Don't just presume, honestly, that a Black kid has a Black mommy and a daddy. Try to just engage in conversations, and then that stuff will come out naturally and organically. And certainly a great way to do that is by having books that are representative, and then having those kinds of conversations. And I think that information will then come out organically in a way that is very comfortable for the child.
Mm-hmm. So one of the other questions I get all the time is like, okay, well, if I know that I have a family with two dads and Mother's Day is coming up, what is okay to ask?
So it's a great question. And here's what any gay dad would love to hear you ask. Ask the dads, not the child again. Mm-hmm. And so that's number one, is you're always going to do this through the parents. how we're going to celebrate Mother's Day. We're going to acknowledge Mother's Day. Is there some way your family acknowledges Mother's Day that you want to make sure that we're including as part of our conversations?
Okay.
That's great. Yes. No, honestly, we don't celebrate Mother's Day. Or, yeah, my husband, we celebrate him on Mom's Day and me on Dad's Day. Or we celebrate the women in our lives. Or we celebrate his birth mom. Or we celebrate the surrogate or the egg donor. Whatever it is, I can tell you this, I can promise you this, every one of us has some way that will have a response. Every one of us will have a response. And so just ask. It's great for the teacher to act proactively, ask the dad, especially if it's, a new school for the kid or first year school, first year in the middle school, I would say that could still come up. So yeah, would love that.
Great. Thank you so much. Those are some of the big things that have come up. I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording. But again, we really appreciate your time.